I told you so. That's what concerns me. This kid has elite skills, but it is not an elite quarterback.
He has an arrogant arm that he thinks he can make any throw. I mean, this is desperation.
Like, the kid has to get better.
And I think it's fair to say when that happens, to say like, okay, well, I don't feel like we see Josh Allen do that.
Time since 2002, draft a wide receiver, Matthew Golden, wide receiver, Texas.
Alright, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the channel. We're talking about the Green Bay Packers in today's video. Now, I am a slightly biased Green Bay Packers fan, but I was reading an article, I think it was on The Athletic, and they were going through every MVP candidate or possible MVP candidate and given, the pros or the cons or why they will or why they won't. And Jordan Love, obviously rightfully so, his name popped up on that list. And, Jordan, like I said, I'm a biased Green Bay Packers fan. Jordan Love does seem like one of those quarterbacks that if I had to put a bet on it right now, with my bias, I would say yes. But I would say even probably non-Packers fans right now, if I were to tell you, maybe you're not going to gamble money on it, but if I were to tell you, hey, Jordan Love's going to win an MVP at one point in his career, you'd be like, okay, that checks out. The point is, Jordan doesn't need to be an MVP. The way this defense has been playing, it's something we really didn't see since the early Aaron Rodgers days. But it was weird because the Green Bay Packers won over 10 games this past season, but because it's 2025, there's nitpicks everywhere. And whether it's the NBA, the NFL, whatever the sport is, if you didn't win the national championship, if you didn't win the Super Bowl, even if you made it to the Super Bowl, it's just not good enough to the rest of the media world. So it's interesting to see all this transpire because, like I said, for 30,000 times in this video already, I'm a Packers fan, and there was nothing about last season that made me think like, oh, we're in for a nightmare here. Now, obviously, maybe that's a little bit more just mentality in general around football, but the reason I'm bringing all this up, because we're talking about MVPs, is the narrative and discussion around Jordan Love right now, it's just very odd, because he didn't turn into a superstar, a top 5 undisputed quarterback this past season because of the way he finished in 2023. We're going to talk about all that in today's video, but before we do, hit that like button, hit that sub button for daily NFL content. Try and get this video to 250 likes, folks. It means the absolute world to me. So, like I said, Jordan, 2 years ago, the second half was just insane. And so the rhetoric around him right now is that, well, can he get to that next level? Can he become an undisputed top 10 quarterback in the National Football League? And that's why Green Bay goes out there last year, first off, pick up Josh Jacobs, the runner. And then that's why they got Matthew Golden in the first round of the NFL draft. They picked up a wide receiver for the first time in 23 years. And that should signify like, hey, especially with Christian Watson's injury, we believe in our quarterback. We think he just might need a couple of more pieces here. So Matthew Golden, his speed alone is going to be huge. Like I said, especially with no Christian Watson for at least, the first half of the season next year. In 2023, Jordan Love had an 87.8 grade on intermediate throws. That number dropped all the way down to about 66 this past season, which was like the 8th worst mark out of all eligible quarterbacks. So you see the regression comments. Matt LaFleur has, talked about it. We've talked about it on this channel. 2 years ago when Jordan, first season post Aaron Rodgers, the final 8 games played insane. And it was literally MVP-esque. He threw 4,200 yards that season, 32 touchdowns, only 11 interceptions. But in those last 8 regular season games, he threw 18 touchdowns, only 1 interception. Obviously, they lit up Dallas, in the first round of the playoffs and, fell short, which still hurts to this day, to the San Francisco 49ers. So the thought process is, the media, just jumps, all right, the expectations are like sky high. They're through the roof. Now, this past season, even statistically, wasn't bad, and he missed a couple of games, and we'll talk about that in 30 seconds. About 3,400 passing yards for Jordan last season, 25 touchdowns, and still only 11 interceptions. But if you're a Packers fan or an NFL fan, the whole the deal here starts in week 1 in Brazil. I was pissed off we were even playing in Brazil. I think a lot of Packers fans, because of the Jordan Love injury, and even other NFL fans because of the injuries, it's like, if you remember the turf, it's like, come on, man, can we play on a real turf here? But he sprains his MCL in week 1, misses a couple of games. Malik Willis comes in, steps up insane. But the bigger issue was his groin strain in week 8, which just pretty much equated to non-consistent practice. The receivers and Jordan just never really had the chemistry. They never, or I shouldn't say chemistry. They just didn't really have the timing down, and you saw it. The Packers ranked 27th with 29 total dropped passes. That absolutely can't happen. But two good things. First and foremost, Josh Jacobs is still a member of the Green Bay Packers running back room, right? But even the offensive line, and it was, once again, critiqued, and it's not even a Packers thing, it's just the NFL. Everyone's always got critiques with sports in general. They go out there, they get their new left guard in Aaron Banks, and people are like, overpay. But the point is this: the Green Bay Packers have two of the best they got one of the best tackle duos in the NFL with right tackle Zach Tom and then left tackle Rasheed Walker, at least in my opinion. And then Anthony Belton was also picked up from NC State. But even with the inconsistency with the quarterback play, or I should say quarterback health last season, the Green Bay Packers offensive line was very good, and per PFF they ranked 3rd in the league in pass protection at 79.6. Like I said, we won't even talk about the run protection because it was money. Josh Jacobs just had a insane season. I can't wait for him and Marshawn Lloyd, Wilson again, etc., etc. But 3 of the 5 starters, including Zach Tom, posted individual grades above 80 per PFF in pass block last season. And so Jordan Love was sacked only 22 times, which was the 2nd lowest total in the National Football League. So new left guard, got the running back room, got a healthy quarterback, we got the offensive line, got a really intriguing tight end room in Tucker Kraft and Luke Musgrave. Well, that's where we get into the fun guys, the 2 draft picks, 1st and 3rd round, respectively, Matthew Golden and Savion Williams. Now, I think we only really have time for Matthew Golden in today's video, and we've talked about both of these cats numerous times. Here's the thing, even real quick, on Matthew Golden and Savion and the Christian Watson injury. The big discussion this offseason was, is Green Bay going to go out there and get a wide receiver 1? Because nobody would have ever guessed in their right mind that the Packers were actually going to take a wide receiver with the 23rd overall pick. Was it 23? Maybe it was just 23, or sorry, whatever pick Green Bay was, 20 whatever. Nobody thought we were taking a wide receiver. Well, Jaden Reed struggled with drops last season. Romeo Doubs struggled staying healthy. Dontavian Wicks struggled with drops last season as well. But here's the thing. Jordan Love's gotten all the slack. He's gotten all the negative criticism regarding this. Well, it's also going to affect, your wide receivers. And so, not that it's necessarily an excuse for the wide receiver room with all the drops, or it's an excuse for Jordan Love. The point just is, it wasn't in the works. It wasn't in the cards last year. Too many things affecting the Green Bay Packers. I view all these Jordan Love injuries as just very difficult to... They just couldn't find their footing. It just basically summed up 8-minute video in one sentence. The Packers could not find their footing for various reasons last year. And so, even without Matthew Golden and Savion Williams, I expect a huge bounce back from Jordan Love and the entire Packers wide receiver room. That's all we got for tonight. I hope you guys enjoyed it. That's it for me. Hit that like button, hit that sub button. We'll see you guys soon. Peace.